Jейми Dорnanon, thank you for being my guest. We're here in the Lyric Theatre in Belfast, the premier theatre in Northern Ireland. You haven't trodden the boards here for a long, long, long time. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that adventure way back in the distant past.
I've only trodden the boards here once, and it was 19 years ago. And we were doing Chekhov, Cherry Orchard. I don't really know what role I played. I think I was a waiter or something. I just remember, like a servant or something. I just walked around offering people drinks, I think. But I felt like I was on stage quite a lot. I mean, I think I probably played a few different roles. That was it was a long time ago.
Does Jeimi Dornanon have a philosophy in life?
I guess I subscribe somewhat to the idea of that school of you only live once, a version of that probably, and that life is for living, and that, you know, you have to enjoy yourself and take a lot of risks. And but then your sort of life ideas change when you become a parent. I think the whole idea of what life is and what it means and why we're all here and all those sort of big scary questions, that all goes out the window when you have a kid. It all just turns everything on its head. So I think it's dangerous to fully subscribe to one total way of living, because I think we all know that anything can happen and massive events change your plan if you have one, and I just sort of take it as it comes, really.
Do you ever think about death?
No, when I was younger, I used to be quite ignorant to death, and I was sort of openly sort of unafraid of it, and I would say that. I would say, I'm not afraid of dying, you know. I sort of didn't want to live my life that way, and I still feel that to a point. I don't want to be someone who's fearful of the idea of it. But again, when you become a parent, you aren't going to take sort of physical risks that could, induce death. I'm not going to jump out of a plane. I probably would have wanted to do that before I became a father. I'm not going to do that now. And I think about it much less now, but when I was younger, based on events and things that happened, I guess it was more in my consciousness. And but I don't. I try not to think about it too often.
Death visited your home almost 20 years ago. In fact, 20 years ago this July, when your very young mum died. You were just 16. What sort of an impact has that death had on you?
Truth be told, I think I'm still sort of finding that out. I think grief is a bizarre concept and feeling, and it's very powerful, and it creeps up on you. And even 20 years on, it'll creep up on you. And that, they say, that thing of grief, it comes in waves, and I truly believe that. But I don't think it comes in waves just in the immediacy of the death. I think it 20 years on, I'll have days where it'll just smack me around the face. Again, I think having 2 kids has an impact on that. So I think the impact it's had on me is forever evolving, and now watching my wife be a mother and both my sisters being mothers, and seeing the role a mother plays in young lives, and then realising that I didn't have that for a section of my my youth. It's a big thing. It felt like a big thing at the time, obviously, and it was a horrendous time in my life, and you're never over it.
Do you keep the memories of your mummy alive in your little children as they are now beginning to grow up?
Yep. Very much so. We have pictures of my mum around our house, and we're forever telling both my kids. Well, our youngest is not even 2 yet, so it's tricky for her. But our 4-year-old asks questions about her all the time, and I think it's only right that we do that. She is their grandmother, and we want them to know that. So yeah. It's something that's very important to me and both my sisters, I think.
What traits did you inherit, do you think, from your mum?
I try to ask myself that quite often. The answer still escapes me. I think my mum was a creative person. And my dad is, as you know, is a creative person himself, but found himself in I feel like my dad's been quite creative in an industry where it doesn't allow for a lot of creativity at times, and that's bothered him a lot in the world of medicine. But my mum wanted to go to art school and got accepted to art school, and went away for summer, I think, and then came back and just go to art school, and her parents had cancelled the application and had enrolled her into nurse college, so they made that decision for her, and that grated on my mother her whole life, you know, and she continued to draw and paint throughout our childhood, and probably the only A's I ever got for my art were actually done by my mum. I probably should admit that, but yeah, so I thought maybe something about me being in a creative industry I took from my mother.
Did you inherit your good looks from your mother at the expense of your father suing me?
I mean, Dad will just not like that question at all. My mother was a beautiful, beautiful woman, and yeah, my dad. The amount of people that come up to me in Belfast and take great pleasure in telling me that I'm nowhere near as handsome as my father. I've had that a lot.
Your father, Jim Dornan, is a well-known gynecologist obstetrician. He's zestful, brimful of energy, irrepressible, larger-than-life character.
Yep.
In fact, I think he had aspirations to being an actor himself.
He did.
Now, what has he imparted to you from your outlook on life, etc.?
Positivity. He's the most unwaveringly positive person I've ever met in my entire life, and I ever will meet in my entire life. He's just has this outlook, and God, look, he's been through it too. I mean, he lost his wife at 50. They're both 50. And
he's had cancer?
He's had cancer. He's in remission from that. Basically, every version of Dad ends with positivity. That's all I can say. I mean, he will turn every negative into positive instantly. And there's not that many people, certainly that I've met, and I feel like I'm pretty well-travelled at a relatively young age, and I've met a lot of people, that I've never met anyone that has that in spades. He says when he walks into any room, no matter what room it is, he feels that he's the youngest person there. I think that's just a brilliant ethos to carry into a room. It gets him into trouble probably sometimes, and sometimes it ends with, I don't know, embarrassing situations for me as a son when I'm with him, if he's in that mindset. But just the most positive, joyful person that I know.
You dropped out of university. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a done thing necessarily against your backdrop, middle class, Methodist College, Belfast, mm-hmm. your contemporaries driving forward. Mm-hmm. Do you ever regret dropping out?
I mean, no, absolutely not, no. I wasn't, for starters, I was a terrible pupil. I wasn't particularly academic at school at all. In fact, it was almost the opposite. I didn't do well at school, I didn't do well in my exams. But I didn't do any work. I mean, I literally didn't. I don't know why that was, and my dad was forever trying to get me to focus more at school and to get good grades, and his parents had done the same with him, even though he wanted a sort of fancier life of playing and acting and whatever it was he wanted to do. It was drilled into him that he had to get good grades, and Dad did try to impart that on all of us, and I just wasn't up for that.
Yeah, but you say you weren't a good student and you didn't give much attention to what you did. How can you explain then your capacity to hold your lines together, to impart lines fluently in various accents and languages, etc.? There seems to be a contradiction there almost. Have you strong memory?
Not particularly strong memory, I don't think. I think the thing is, if it's something that I want to learn about, the part I enjoy most about being an actor is the research and getting your nails dirty and digging into the lives of these people that you're portraying and the time of which you're portraying and doing all that research, and to do it all and then just to try to forget it and leave it all behind when you hear action, because you don't want to be your head filled with all that stuff. So when it's something that I want to learn about and I want to focus on, I'll be the most focused person in the world. I just at school and at university just had zero interest in what they were trying to get me to focus on.
You left Belfast in 2001. That's a long time ago.
Yes.
A lot of things have happened in your life since then. When you come back here, you're virtually a prisoner in your own city. You just can't walk around, can you? Somebody's going to be asking for an autograph, a photograph, or wanting to speak with you. Do you find that a bit irksome?
Yeah, I do a wee bit. I do here. It's worse here than anywhere else in the world for me personally. I guess here, if you're in the public eye and you're from here, you've gone away and done whatever, and you're recognisable, people feel that they have a sort of an ownership of you almost here. And where if you get recognised, say in your pub or something, and you're in London or you're in New York or Berlin, anywhere, and someone recognises you, they come up and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, excuse me, would you mind? I'm a big fan, can I, But in Belfast, you're in a headlock before you know it. Someone's just grabbed you, they're taking a picture without asking you, and once they finally release you from a headlock, then it's like they invariably know someone. It's like 2 degrees of separation here as opposed to 6. It's usually, sure, your dad delivered my kids, or you're my second cousin or something. We're distantly related. So that is tricky for me here, I find, and I don't get to spend a great deal of time at Belfast anymore. That upsets me a little bit because I do love it here, but it's more manageable. That side of things more manageable when I'm not here.
Did you always want to be famous?
No, I don't want to be famous. I don't like the idea of fame. I didn't always want to be an actor. I did want to. When I dropped out of uni, which was it was a big thing, and it was a lot of long conversations in that sort of room in the house that you never use. Dad would bring me in there and we'd have like long, drawn out chats about future and I said, I don't want to go back to uni. I was doing a marketing degree. I had absolutely zero interest in it. And fair play to Dad, because he gave me the go ahead to on a whim go to London. And I think, essentially, if I'd stayed in uni, I was kidding myself.
So what drove you in the direction of male modelling? That must have been very popular coming from your background, or somebody who was very keen on rugby, we're told, and all that type of thing. Why did you end up as a male model?
It was an easy door that opened to me. Who grows up wanting to be a male model? Certainly no one I've ever met.
How did it happen?
It happened through great reluctance and through a bit of a push from my sister Jess, and it was a timing thing. The exact summer of 2002, I made a decision that I was going to drop out of university. I just mucked around that summer, sort of drank too much and achieved very little, and had a lot of big chats with my dad and about my future. And I was saying, I want to go to London, and Dad was going, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't quite know yet, but I just have an idea that I'll go. And I thought I'd maybe apply to drama school, maybe go down that route, and maybe end up being an actor. But I just thought if I get to London, things will sort of fall into place. And maybe that's a slightly arrogant thing to say, but I had a belief that if I got to London, things would work out for me. And then my sister Jess said that there's this thing called Model Behaviour, and they were doing auditions at the Wellington Park Hotel on the Malone Road. And I was like, the last thing in the world I want to do is be a model. But the timing of, like, I don't know what to do, maybe that'll get me to London, how hard could it be, like getting a photograph taken. So I went, and then, I actually didn't do particularly well on that show, but it was enough to sort of get me there, make a few contacts, phone a few people. But I worked in a pub for 6 months.
Jimmy, I was told that you were a very keen rugby player when you were at Methodist College in Belfast. What did your mates think of you when you became a male model? Did you get a lot of stick, a lot of ribbing?
Yeah, And rightly so. I sort of deserved a lot of ripping for it, and I would have done the exact same thing. I think that there was a time where it was all quite evident what they thought about me. I was in New York, and a couple of mates were there who were also from Methody, who were over doing a bit of a stint in New York, and I was there working. And we went into Nicole Farry's store. And I'd done the campaign about 6 months previous, and it takes about that amount of time for the pictures to come out. But I sort of didn't know if they were going to be out yet. And of course, we walk in, and as soon as we walk in, there's this huge poster of me. And I'm doing quite an odd pose in it. It's quite an awkward-looking, uncomfortable sort of seating setup. My hands are doing something pretty weird. It wasn't my finest shot. But still, as with friends, it's a successful thing that's happened. Cue support from your friends, but no, they just laughed and laughed, and I doubled over laughing, got the women from the shop over to point and agree with them about how stupid my pose was, and I just sat back and went, okay, well listen, if that's what your friends are like, who needs enemies?
Well, you hit the top as a model, Calvin Klein, posters all over the place, buses everywhere in London, everywhere one went, but you opted out from modelling. What decided for you to espouse acting? Did you feel that modelling was a poor relation to acting or to an alternative career?
I didn't have a great deal of respect for modelling.
Why?
I just didn't think it was something that it didn't do anything for me. It was very good to me, and I'm grateful to it for what it gave me, and I did it for a decade, and it was, you know, it was fun, but I didn't actually enjoy the actual act of it, and I found that there was a lot of really sort of ridiculous people that I couldn't take seriously a lot of the time, and some of the conversations I was privy to, I just find it a bit ridiculous, to be honest, and I just had very little interest in it, and I didn't want to be in my 40s doing it. I no appeal to me at all to be doing it beyond. I just thought it's a fun thing to do in my 20s. I literally started when I was 20, finished when I was 30, and I thought that's a cool thing to do for a decade, you know, and get paid to have your photograph taken and, you know, travel the world. But then I just thought things need to get serious, and that was mostly down, pretty much all down to meeting Millie, my wife, who I met when I was 27. I was still modelling a bit, but I was trying to kind of act, and I was conscious of that thing of model/actor, model turning into actor, and I wanted to try to do work that, you know, was as far away from that idea as possible, but it's quite hard to come by. If you have spent a decade getting your photograph taken, you're sort of put forward for very particular types of roles. But when I met Millie, and I knew the night I met her that I was going to marry her, so I thought, I just have to get a bit serious here, and being serious to me wasn't to continue modelling.
I want to follow on your acting career in a moment, but you say the night you met Millie, you knew you wanted to marry her.
100%, yeah.
Was that your epiphany moment?
I didn't tell her that. That would have been a bit too strong, I think, as an opener. It was definitely an epiphany moment. I feel like you'll have a few of those in your life, and it was yeah. Truth be told, I knew who she was before, and I'd always fancied her. I had this weird thing where I always felt that if I met her, that we would just get on. It's a very strange thing. Something about like her eyes or something. I just thought like we would work. I don't know why. So then when I knew she was going to be at this house party in LA in February 2010, I got up to that house party pretty fast.
Let me ask you something. Do you still tell her this?
I tell my wife I love her 10 times a day. I do. I think that's really important. I don't do it because I think that's what she should do as a husband. I do that because that's what I think.
Well, now that she knows you so well,
yeah.
Does she tell you 10 times a day that she loves you? 7
or 8, probably. I think I get a few sort of no responses.
Success didn't come overnight for you in terms of being an actor. You had your tough times, and then you had a minor role in Marie Antoinette, I think, etc. enter Alan Cubitt, the man behind The Fall, which was filmed in Belfast, which became a very highly rated series in Belfast. How did that happen?
A lot of, very rarely does stuff that's set here come across your lap that isn't directly about the Troubles. And I've sent these scripts, and you hear actors saying this all the time, but I really do mean this. They were the best scripts I'd ever read. Now, I was sent them, I think I was sent the first 3 episodes, and it was to play one of the police officers who dies at the end of the second episode. But at that time in my career, playing a police officer in a BBC series who dies after 2 episodes was a really good gig. I was like, that's a great thing. I've never done anything for the BBC. I must have had, dozens and dozens of auditions for BBC. I've never had a sniff at anything, really. I thought this would be great. I'd go in. I'd met Alan before. We had a couple of mutual friends in London. So I'd met him socially before. So when I went in, it was nice there because he was a friendly face. I did the audition. I'm a terrible auditioner. I've never in my life come out of an audition that I thought went well. I've always just gone, well, that's a waste of everyone's time. And it was the first audition I ever came out of where I went, you know what, that was all right. I think that was all right. I think I did well there. So I was going out to LA for pilot season immediately after the audition I had had, or 2 weeks after the audition I'd had for The Fall. And the idea was we would rent the house for 4 weeks and I'd stay out there the whole time trying to get a job. And after 4 days of being out there, committed to this rental property in LA and stuff, after 4 days they called me and said, we want you to come back and audition for Spectre. Now, I had planned to propose to my then girlfriend at the time, so I thought I'd do that at some stage over the month. I ended up having to do it slightly earlier, and we were on a flight within a week back to London, and then, yeah, the rest is history.
Can you just tell us, though, why was this man, Alan Cubitt, so important to you in terms of getting that role of Spectre? He
was just adamant from day one that I was the guy. You think if you are the writer, producer of the project that you have final say, but it doesn't work like that. There's a million different people who have opinion, heads of BBC and casting directors and other producers, and everyone had their say. And, we joke about it now with all of those people because I'm close with all of them. But, a lot of them admitted to me that they didn't think I was the guy. So Alan just had to fight and fight and fight to convince them, even to see me as Spectre. They all thought I was going to get offered the policeman part. They were all happy for me to do that. But he had to convince them to even get me in the room to have a go at Spectre. So, I will forever, for the rest of my career, if it still continues to go in the right direction, be grateful to Alan Cubitt because he changed my life, because he just was adamant that I was the guy. So I am forever indebted to him.
Had you any reservations, though, Jamie, given the subject matter, the content of this particular series? It was very dark, particularly in your own city.
No, because it's just a phenomenal role. And roles like that maybe only come around once in a career. And I think most actors are mindful of that. And I may never play anything like that again, or get an opportunity to play someone as deep as that and as complicated as that will have as big an impact as that. That's just the way of it. It's a strange career, and you just might not come your way again. So I just had to jump on it and seize it, and that's what I mean. I genuinely thought if I get this role, it'll change my life, and it did.
"50 Shades of Grey."
Yeah.
Now, it's a big jump from Mr. Spectre to becoming Mr. Grey. How did that transition happen? Was that accident again, or what exactly occurred?
That wouldn't have happened without The Fall. I mean, nothing that happens in the rest of my career that is positive doesn't happen without The Fall. I think the only reason I was in a conversation for that part was because of The Fall. They wanted someone relatively unknown, which I was. Yeah, and it was just one of those things, and I was very much in the conversation before it, and then they cast someone else quite famously, and then he pulled out of it or whatever happened there, and then it was sort of open again, and then, you know, it was mine. And it all happened very quickly, and I only got cast 4 weeks before we started filming.
Well, when you signed on that dotted line to play the lead role, Mr. Grey, did you know just the fallout, the potential fallout, the tsunami of change that was going to take place in your life?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to answer because, you know, over 100 million people have read the books. The movies were going to make an impact. You knew they were going to make a big impact, and you knew they were going to be, you know, received in very controversial terms, and you're going to have fans of the book who only want good things for the film and want them to be good and want to embrace it. And then you're going to have a lot of people who are very critical of not only the content of the films, but also just the way they're made and the sort of, you know, people have a real snobbery about those books and the way they're written and the style of writing and everything. So I was, you know, acutely aware of that. You know, I hadn't read the books before, you know, I got the part, but you couldn't not know about them. You couldn't not know they're this huge phenomenon. So, yeah, I had an idea that it was going to make a splash, but I guess the biggest thing in my head at that moment was that Millie was 36 weeks pregnant when I got that part. So actually all I was really thinking about was the health and welfare of my wife and the baby inside her, and getting to Canada safely where we were filming the movies, and you know, having a healthy baby and everyone being good. That, to be honest, I mean, you know yourself, if, you know, 3 kids, it's that's where your head's at.
Well, of course, the fallout from it has been immense. Once I announced on radio here that you were going to be my guest for this series, I was getting messages from all over the world in French and Spanish. I think Greek popped up as well. Such was the impact, the impatience that obtained out there. When is the interview taking place? Where is it taking place? Are you holding him back? What's going on? Yeah. What is it like for you coping with that out there?
I'm not aware of it because...
How would you not be aware of it?
Because I'm not on social media. So I honestly just don't, and that's a decision. I used to be. As you know, you were the first person I ever followed when I was on Twitter. But I've made a choice to not be involved in it anymore, and... my whole thing was, there's a lot about all that you're talking about, and all that attention and scrutiny and opinion that I don't think is that healthy to be aware of, especially when it concerns your family at times and your daughters, and sometimes by being on there you're open to that and you can see that. So I think my thing was just build a wall, take down all of that, and don't let people in, because if that's how people behave, I don't really want to be supporting it.
So are you anti-social media?
I'm not anti it. I understand why it works for certain people, and you know, I think it's necessary in many forms, and for news outlet I think it's great, and some of the content's brilliant, and it's probably done very good things for a lot of people. It's a personal thing for everyone. For me, I got to a point where I was like, I've a million reasons why now this isn't right for me.
What do you make of Donald Trump's habitual tweeting, allegedly spending several hours each morning instead of reading documents and papers? What about that? What do you think of that?
I think he'd probably be using his time slightly better, is what I think. I've got lots of opinions on Donald Trump that we probably shouldn't get into.
Let's hear them. Let's hear them.
It's not the right platform.
Are you likely to play golf with them?
Possibly not.
If he invited you to play golf, would you play with them?
That's the thing. It's very hard. I mean, you know, Rory had this issue, and I was speaking to Rory
McIlroy.
Rory McIlroy. You're put in quite a tricky situation there when you know, the leader of the free world comes and asks you if you want to play a game of golf, and if you just say that it's just a game of golf and you don't attach anything else to it, and political views and all of that, then it is just a game of golf, and where's the harm in that? And but then everything gets so blown up now, and social media is part of that, definitely. So,
would you have the strength of character to say no?
I don't think he's going to ask me, so I think
well,
I'm all right.
Presumably he did ask you.
I honestly don't know. I think it'd be really interesting to play around the golf with him. You know, I don't think there's one policy that he has that I'm in any form of agreement with, but it would certainly be interesting. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be an interesting person to play around the golf with.
When it came to playing Mr. Grey and all that, did you have any reservations at all, allowing yourself to enter into that world of raunchy sexual environment and that type of thing? Did you think twice about that? Did you have second thoughts? Did you reflect on family attitudes and everything when you were confronted with this challenge?
Mm-hmm. No.
Why was that?
Not at all. Because, you know, my dad's one of the most liberal people I've ever met. And, you know, my whole defence of 50 Shades is that it's consensual. And by the way, like S&M, that type of sex, whatever, it's not for everyone. It's not for me, personally. But lots of people enjoy it. And it exists. We haven't made it up. We're not forcing it down people's throat. It exists. It's a real thing. And lots of people love it. And we're just, you know, portraying that. And so I think it's harmless, to be honest.
How does your wife, Millie, cope with all the waves of temptation out there for you? How does she keep her head sane with all this attention, this adulation that you receive?
I think we've made life choices that protect us from a lot of what you're saying. We've made a choice to live in the countryside, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And that's where we want to raise our kids. Neither of us are on social media. I think you can. It's a funny thing with fame or you know, attention or whatever, you know, public attention, whatever you want to call it. I think you can make it worse for yourself if you choose to. And you can peacock a little bit, and you can be seen at this place and that place and make sure at this event and live in this part of town and be on social media and follow these kind of people and tweet this kind of thing. And again, like, I'm not, like, you know, if that's the way you want to be, fine. But as I say, I've made a choice for my family, and collectively, Millie and I have made a choice that isn't how we want to be. So I think we protect ourselves from it a bit. And I know Millie has not seen any of the movies. I doubt she ever will. We sort of joke about watching them in our sort of 80s.
Why would your wife not look at you in playing one of the highest profile roles in the world?
There's plenty of sex in those movies. I just don't know why you'd want to watch your husband simulate sex with someone else for, you know, 40 minutes out of an hour-and-a-half movie. I just, you know... yeah, I mean, she's so supportive about the whole thing. She's been with me the entire time we've been shooting them. She comes to set on certain days when we're not doing certain scenes. Her and Dakota have an amazing relationship. They're very close. And, you know, so it supports in every way. Comes to the premiere. I don't watch the movie at the premiere, you know. I always have to go off and do press or something anyway, and I've usually seen it by that point. So it just has served her not to watch them.
Does it concern you, the fact that Oscars and BAFTAs have eluded you up until this point?
I got nominated for a BAFTA.
But you haven't won a BAFTA. You haven't won an Oscar. Does
I'm
that
still quite young.
concern you?
Still quite young.
You're still travelling in hope, is that what you're saying?
No, it's funny, those sort of things. I was always like, I don't really care about any of that stuff. I really didn't think I cared until I was nominated for a BAFTA for the first series of The Fall. And I was there, and it wasn't until the night I got there, and we were at the BAFTAs, and I went, you know what, I want to win this. I'm a competitive person. I've always competitive, you know, with sport and stuff, and I was just like, you know, why wouldn't I want? I feel like I should want to win this, and I did want to win it, and then I was, you know, I got over it very quickly. I don't dwell much and stuff, but you know, but I was annoyed for a second that I didn't win. But every single job you do, you've got to improve on your last, and you've got to think, you've got to do it better, and every job's got to be the best job you ever do, I feel. So hopefully those sort of you know, as much as I like to think I don't care about that, hopefully those things will come back around at some stage.
Do you think you're a good actor?
I think I'm serviceable. You know, I think the fact that I'm employed a lot at the moment must mean that I've got something to offer. I've never watched myself and thought, God, that's good, you know. But I'm aware that, you know, through other people's reactions and through things like being nominated for BAFTA, that other people deem you to be good. So I take, you know, solace from that. But you can never... You never want to believe that you've got it set, that you're like, I know what I'm doing here, I just turn up and I do this and that'll work. You've always got to be learning, I think.
Do you ever have times when you say, the hell with this for a game of darts, I think I should be doing something else? Do you ever actually think of getting out, walking away from it all? Not now, no. I have a real thirst for it at the moment. I feel like the thing I'm working on at the moment and a movie I did... 2 movies I did last year that you know, that whole thing of like wanting the next one to be the best one and putting more and more into it. I feel like I'm really trying to sort of fill those levels at the moment, and I want to pour everything into it. So I love it. Tell me the story, Jamie, about meeting the chef from Skull in Jordan. Mm-hmm. So I was doing A Private War. It's a movie about war correspondent Marie Colvin. And we were filming the whole thing out in Jordan up until Christmas there. And got into the hotel in Jordan at 1 o'clock in the morning. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, I get a call. The hotel phone is ringing. And no one knows I'm here yet, really. I'm thinking it might be production, whatever. I answer, and it's... he goes, hello, is that Jamie? I said, hi. So this is Tom. I'm the executive chef here. I said, oh, nice to meet you, Tom. He goes, I hear you're Irish. Yeah, I am indeed, yeah. I just want you to know that anything you need over the next month, you just let me know, and I'll sort it out. And that was it. And that was just from being Irish. I just had this in with the chef, which actually worked out really well. He's from Skull in West Cork. You declared yourself with such ease there. I'm Irish. Mm-hmm. Is that how you feel? Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, when people ask me where I'm from, I say Northern Ireland, because that's the truth. But when it boils down to it, and it does boil down to it a lot, because you're asked this a lot, and because when people know where you're from, if you're from Belfast, I travel all around the world, and just people want to know that very thing. Do you consider yourself Irish or British? Or they ask you Catholic or Protestant, which personally to me neither apply. And so I feel, if it comes down to it, do I feel British or Irish? I just feel Irish. A lot of that's down to so many different reasons, mostly geography, that we are an island separate from the UK. So why would you feel more connected to that other piece of land than you do to the piece of land that you're living on? Also, you know, as you know, I'm a big rugby fan, and you know, I've had my whole life either being in Lansdowne Road in Dublin or watching it on TV or watching it in pubs all over the world, screaming, go on Ireland, come on Ireland. Then how could I not call myself Irish? Have you made any sense out of Brexit? Are you European? Are you anti-Europe? Are you Brexiteer? What are you? I'm anti-Brexit. I am kept awake at night for what it means for this country. I can't really see a sort of sound solution. Some of the people who have a say in it over here break my heart a little bit. You mean in Northern Ireland? Mm-hmm. I think this is the last thing that this country needs at the moment, and I just don't see how there's a positive outcome for Northern Ireland no matter. There's lots of different, very interesting options on the table, and I think they should all be seriously considered. But who knows where we'll end up. Jimmy, what are your biggest fears in life? Actually, someone asked me that recently, and I didn't have an answer. I don't. The only thing that I can think of is that I fail my family, that I don't provide for my wife and my kids. Do you ever worry, though, that in a very fickle world, against the backdrop of all the temptations out there, given the nature of the industry in which you operate, that you might fail your wife, you might fail your family. Does that concern you?
No, because I'm quite a determined person. More determined than I realised I was, certainly when I was sort of 19 and I was fittering around trying to work out what I wanted to do. And I was quite non-committal back then. But now I feel very determined to succeed. And again, maybe that thing touched on earlier about a self-belief that, you know, if I move to London, I think things will work out, and, you know, ultimately they have to this point. I back myself that I will be able to keep the ship steady.
If you weren't an actor, what do you think you'd like to do?
Sport, some kind of sport. No, I wasn't good enough really to play any sport. I was decent at sport and at many different ones, but not, you know, didn't excel at anything, and that sort of bothered me. But if you'd asked me at 16, 17, 18 what I'd be doing, I'd be amazed to hear that I wouldn't be involved in sport in some capacity. And you know, like a lot of people watched Jerry Maguire and just thought they wanted to be like a sports agent. Yeah, I'm obsessed with sport.
What's the role above all roles that you were to play?
Don't think like that.
What about James Bond?
Don't think about it.
Why not?
Because it's such. Setting goals in this trade as an actor is a really bad idea, I think, because it's so unpredictable and you don't have a clue what's going to happen, and you know you're always jealous as an actor. I feel I'm delighted at everything I've done, especially in the last year or so. I've just put so much heart and soul and love into it, and I think this is going to be something that I can look back on and be really proud. And you put everything into it. But then there'll be, one of your mates will do something, or you read a script that you really like and one of your mates will do it and you're happy for them. But then there's a pang of jealousy as well. But then you might do something that they want to do. And there's always another career. As happy as you are and as employed as you are and as satisfied as you are as an actor, there's always going to be like, I like his career. I like some of the choices he makes are better. Why can't I have that? And that doesn't stop. I mean, DiCaprio probably thinks like that. He's probably like, I want, Day-Lewis's career. I want as much respect as him.
Do you recall the morning when I picked you up in Stimulus for your work experience with me at Parliament Buildings?
Very well.
Tell me about that moment.
I did 4 or 5 days with you. You gave us the last day off, I remember very clearly, because you called me and I was getting up and getting in the shower to come and meet you, and you said it was a quiet day at Stormont. And
what do you think I learned about you at that stage?
Yeah, you were probably...
So what was the first question I asked you when you got into the car?
You're testing me. First question you asked me was... What paper did I read?
No.
What was it?
I asked you, what was the lead story on the radio news that morning? Mm-hmm. What was my second question? What
paper do you read?
What was your answer?
The Mirror.
What did I ask you?
You asked why?
And what did you say?
I said the sport.
Does Jamie Dornan know who he is today? Or has he changed? Or have the people around Jamie Dornan changed?
I think I have a decent idea of who I am. I don't think that I knew you were going to do that. Let me answer the rest of it first. I feel like the people around me are the same, and that doesn't change, and that's a brilliant thing, and that's one of the best gifts that being from here and going to Methody it had for me. It gave me the friends that I'm going to have the rest of my life. So, your family never changes. The fundamentals in your life don't change. And I feel that I am just a more developed version of that sort of mirror reading, naive kid when I was 17 to work experience with you. I feel that I'm in relative control of myself. I don't do anything too crazy to excess, or I feel like I hope I'm a good husband and a good father, and beyond that, I don't really care.
Jamie Dornan, thank you for being my guest.
Thanks, Eamon. Thank you. Pleasure.